Go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's episode of Jawin with Jack. And tonight with me, my guest is the indefatigable, and I'm not going to say all the rest of the words I put there, but
J.
welcome
Scott
to the
Garibay.
show, J. Scott Garibay.
My name is John Scott Garibay. Some people are and I did two novels, and and what I did was J. Scott Garibay. So my name is John Scott Garibay, and I go by Scott.
Your nom de plume, as it were, is the J. Scott Garibay.
Yeah.
So what? Tell me about your novels. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. And it's interesting because so I'm 12 years on D&D commentary on YouTube. I wrote two novels. I have Amerindian 2192, and then I have a fantasy novel, which is like an isekai, people going from the real world to their game world. I have another novel. Both of them, like, I'd be surprised if 1,000 people, read the first, and then 1,000 people read the second. But I'm here on YouTube because, one, I was doing, long form video for quite a few years, and I mean like a 10-minute to 20. I never go over like 18 minutes. That's my cap. But that's what I call long form video. And then the first short I did was it was a D&D short where I just made a D&D joke with a new Coca-Cola flavor. It got 9,000 views, more views from a 9-second video than both of my novels got. So I consider myself a writer, and this is my writing. Like, I write on YouTube every day now. And other people like, well, your stuff is free form off the top of your dome. That's actually not true at all. I do a lot of writing behind the scenes to determine what I cover on my channel.
So the writing, you do not come across as if you are reading a script. It sounds
I don't read a script. That's exactly right. So
the writing organizes your thinking.
So first of all, I use Trello, which is a fantastic organizational tool that allows you to drag and drop notes. So I have no less than like 2,000 script ideas in there, and I spend a lot of time pulling things to the top, right? And then the other thing that people don't realize is I also carefully manage my information intake diet, right? And so I can cover things. I love the way I cover Dungeons and Dragons because I think it's really unique. And one of the reasons why it is unique is it can happen today, and I can literally have a video up that day. So I can comment on it that day because of the process I use, which is really exciting. And I love that. And you can't do anything like that in novels or in writing. It's way slower. So it is odd. People don't realize I actually consider my YouTube my current writing. And not only do I consider my YouTube, I'm a writer on YouTube. I actually think that's the future of writing. Like that written books and even written prose it's just ridiculously antiquated. Like recently, a guy by the name of Echo Hawk. He is a brilliant dude. He did fantastic analysis on D&D trends, and he put it on Ian World, and like 4 people read it. Who cares, right? I literally took all his content and did like 10 videos on him, right? And I guarantee I would be really surprised if my coverage of that didn't end up having more coverage than his original prose work. So I love, I have written books, and I even have I have some highlights from my book collection, and I love the written word, but I think it's antiquated at this point. YouTube is the future, and of course, actually I really think YouTube is the future because I was about to say other platforms, but nobody does what YouTube does as well. It's unprecedented, which is
right. I mean, I think in an abstract sense, the possibility always exists that some other company will eclipse YouTube and do what they do better or serve the need that develops. But so far, I'm largely in agreement. Or at least I really see your point, because even I myself, I don't read like I used to, but I'm reading all day on the internet or on social media or listening to videos or watching something, and I really feel it's the same way. It's my experience was similar. Several years back now, I released the novel, and it was just an opportunity.
So what was the name of your novel?
Oh, my novel is called Onin. It's spelled Onin, and it's the name of the main character. And he is supporting character in the World of Godsland series written by Brian Rathbone. So he was somebody I played D&D with, and then we after many years of not playing since high school or young adulthood, we played a game online, and he said, God, what's it going to take to get a novel out of you? And I said, I don't know, really. He goes, well, I had this thing I've been wanting to try and get people to write additional novels for characters in the world. And I said, okay, I'll give it a try. And I knocked out one novel for that. And I said, this is cool. I think I got a trilogy in me. Or I can't wrap it all up in one book and stuff like that. He said, great, Leo, let's do that and stuff like that. But then finished the book up. We did a Kickstarter to cover the editing costs of it, did all the drafts, and then put the book out there. And it was a Kickstarter. It was a bundle of, I wrote a book, Brian wrote a book, and he had another indie author that he knew write another book, the background story of one of the supporting characters of the novel. And all three of them bombed at the same time. And it was during a year where many people who had been making their livings off of Amazon suddenly said, where'd all my money go? My sales dropped out. A lot of people bombed that year. So part of it for me, though, was definitively, I had no social media presence. I had avoided it like the plague.
Exactly.
And had done nothing with it. Got it from Mike.
Yeah.
It's good to see you, my friend.
Indeed.
And of course, Cyrus, right, man? Always, he's glad to have you here, Cyrus. So, yeah, so I dropped my novel out there, and then all of a sudden,
no.
Oh, but yeah. I mean, I can see that.
That always surprises people, but and the reason I do that is time. And again, I have more videos on the subject of D&D than literally anyone on the planet. Like it just allows me to do it allows me to do content sooner. It allows me to cover more topics, and it allows me to cover topics more deeply than others. So that's one of the reasons that it always surprises people, but I like it.
Yeah. And YouTube definitely has more reach and exposure than even written blogs of any type. There's, Substack is kind of a hot thing, but it's already, there's a lot of good stuff going on Substack, but already I'm buried in so much stuff that I literally can't keep up with everything that I want to read on Substack.
I think if you're a writer, you better figure out how to write on YouTube, because the reach is just so much broader. And I think one thing that a lot of people don't understand is that YouTube is a podcast form. Like a lot of people don't watch YouTube; they'll listen to it, which is great. And so which is nice.
That's what I do all day with. I have that going while I'm working.
Yeah. So I definitely think, any kind of a new artist, if you have ideas and you want to get them out to a global platform, you should really consider YouTube over prose. I just think it's a better platform, no question. Yeah.
And so your experience is similar to mine. I listen to Seth Skorkowski, and he's
fantastic.
Well, I just get on YouTube and talk about gaming, and I'm like, all right, that sounds like something I can do. And then
the nice thing about Seth is he's won actually at this point he's literally won awards, right? And so he does a great job.
Multiple Emmy award winning. Hey, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but I might be up for a Scooty this year.
Nice, that's awesome. That's fantastic.
I don't know who else is in the running, but there's a lot of good, tough interview shows out there on YouTube in our little tabletop space.
Absolutely fantastic. That's good progress.
Scudder for Mike says YouTube changed my life, built a bunch of new skills, made tons of new friends, of which I am one. Scudder for Mike is one of the best game masters I've played with in my 47 years of gaming.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, he's great. He's got a good sense of pacing. He makes excellent use of descriptive. He really gets into it and he emotes a lot, but he's not too wordy, so he keeps it concise. The really primo stuff. We played Mothership together. A
Oh,
little bit of
fantastic. Yeah.
yeah, a little bit of D&D stuff. We got some AD&D coming up. I'm a member on his channel, so he
Nice.
hosts games for us over on
Oh,
his Discord.
fantastic. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm a big fan of Mothership. I recently I have, like you, I go through journeys as far as how I buy. So I would say for the last, if you went back 2 3 years ago, I started buying my D&D books. I was like, oh, I want both the D&D Beyond and I want the digital and I want the physical. But I'm now collecting comics, and so what I do is I go on Wednesdays, I get my comic books, and I go right over to the FLG, to the tabletop part, and I saw Mothership had a brand new starter box, which I thought was really fascinating. It was beautiful. It was packed with good stuff. But one thing I thought was really interesting was it was about this big. It was about like a two sandwiches put together, and then I just bought the last two Dungeons and Dragons starter boxes. It was Heroes on the Borderland and Welcome to the Hellfire Club, and both of those are same thing, just absolutely packed to the brim with good stuff. But what I think is going to be tough for the OSRs and the indies going forward, like Mothership, is Mothership was two-thirds the size of both of the brand new D&D starter sets, but it was $80, whereas these were a third larger and they were 50, right? So, and I think that's only going to go for, like, I think it's going to be very difficult for OSR and indie to compete on value for dollar going forward. Mothership is a good game, but like I was like, this thing's this big and costs 80. D&D's this big and costs 50. Like I thought that was very interesting recently.
Wow, that is something. Yeah, and Mothership has been an excellent experience. I only own the digital rules, but I've heard so many great things about the starter box and what it contains and what you can do with it.
Yeah,
and the app that you can get through the web is excellent. I track all my characters through that. Can't recommend that enough.
yeah.
Off Grid said, I wish more YouTubers would also put their YouTube content onto podcast apps for frequent commuters who want to listen to long form discussions.
So
Now,
actually, I go ahead. You give me your take on that. I got a take on that. Go ahead.
oh, okay. I have, as far as I know, toggled that switch on my YouTube channel here. So these chats should be available in podcast form. If they are, I would like to get verification that they are.
So here's my take on that. So one, I don't think most you. So I haven't even bothered doing that, right? And I don't plan to. But here's the fix to that solution. So
Mhm.
many years ago, I went YouTube Red. They might even call it something different now,
Yeah,
but
it's premium.
right. Yeah, exactly.
Me
And
too.
so you get no ads, right? So what you're much better off is if you just get rid of the ads on YouTube, and I think it's like $10 a month. I couldn't live without it. I'm a YouTuber, and more than that, I listen to YouTube as podcasts. But once you do that and you go ad free
Yeah.
on YouTube, you'll never hit a podcatcher again, right? And the reality is,
Yep.
I think this discussion is over. People are like, "Oh, I need that on a podcast." You're 5 years behind, man. Every podcast that matters is on YouTube, right? Like as a video, right? Like so, I just feel like that is like you're just not understanding how information is distributed today. My take. Yeah.
Good. Now, he does have the handle Off Grid Gamer.
Oh, there. Yeah. Yeah.
So cut him a little
Yeah.
slack.
Well, I'm definitely very pro tech. I really like tech a lot.
Yeah, I know. Me too. It's I like love it and hate it at the same time. It's like I love it because it allows me to do this, and then
Yeah.
I hate it because so many other people can do this.
I love it and I love it. There's no hate on that side. I'm extremely pro tech and I really, really, and I guess the one well, I would say it's an exception, but I do really love physical books and I still buy a lot of physical books and I read physical books, but even there, right? Like if you watch my channel, one of the things I've been doing recently is I will buy a D&D book and I don't just sit down and read it anymore. I cut it up into shorts and I read it in 100 shorts, and and I'm not reading the entire book, so they have to go get it. But
Mhm.
literally, I'm turning the reading of a book into content, right? And I've been very happy with how shorts have performed, and that's also just learning YouTube and getting better at YouTube. I think that's extremely efficient. Yeah.
I'm turning some notions over in my noodle for how I can try and up into the shorts game.
Yeah, yeah, actually, and after we're done here, at any point, feel free to reach out, and I'd be happy to, let you know how I do it. And one thing I love, one of the viewers earlier said, somebody in the chat said, YouTube has changed my life and it given me all these new skills, and I think that's another thing is just I've really learned how to use video, how to get my message across. Like I'm a 55-year-old man, like nobody listens to us anymore, and 3,500 people turn in every day, and I'm coming up on 3 million views. That's massively more successful than my two
Wow.
books have ever done, and so, and it keeps me on the edge. And that's the other thing is I want my channel to continue to grow. So it's one of the reasons why I not switched over to shorts. I now do shorts and long form.
Long
And
form.
I've been kind of growing. How do I manage that? Like, how do I and like today I did it, right? I deleted a long form video and I was like, "Oh, this is going to fit better on shorts." Right? And so I lost an 8-minute video, but that's going to be 50 shorts. And the way I do shorts is I'll shoot them all at, once or in blocks, and then I'll string them out for weeks, one a day. And that took a while to learn that and do that. But it's been, I've been very happy with the performance, which is
You've
good.
settled into a strategy of what works for you.
I'm doing that. I actually, and I'm very careful about this. Like I evolve, like I don't settle into anything, and that's to your point. Like that's one of the reasons why people hate tech, right? Is you can't, you always have to
Settle
be
into.
ready to adapt and evolve, right? And so
I
radio
like
tech,
podcasts. I don't want it to change. I
exactly.
liked radio. Even the commercials were good.
Exactly. And actually, I'll put this here on this shelf. So I'm a 55-year-old man, but I am extremely anti grognard and extremely anti old man grump grump. I just don't want to be that guy. And so I'm very like I don't I'm just not one of those guys who's like, "Oh, back in the day, D&D was great then and now it sucks now." I'm like, "D&D rocks today." Right? And I like to be aware of what was in the past, but I'm buying the brand new stuff right now and celebrating that and putting that on my channel rather than trying to drag people to editions that are 30 years old, which is just my thing.
Well, then that kind of takes us back around to the original topic and how I usually start. Scott, how did you get started in the role playing game hobby? What was your first game, your first edition?
Sure thing. So 1979, I'm in Racine, Wisconsin, and
Mm.
and a young man says, "I we're sitting on a we're it's me and some friends just standing on a porch. I'm 9 years old, and this kid says, "I own a castle," and I'm like, "You don't own a castle. You live in a ranch house, right? Like right?" And he's like, "It's in Dungeons and Dragons," and I was like, "What?" And it blew my mind, and it took me 3 years to figure out what the heck he meant and what it was. And in 1982, my parents bought me the red box. I'm evangelical Christian, and they were Christians, right? So
Mhm.
this was literally in the middle of the Satanic Panic. But the reason why my Christian parents bought me D&D was I read voraciously, and they weren't afraid of books, right? And so they bought it for me. And but they didn't just buy it and like, oh, what are you doing with that? I had kids around the kitchen table within 3 weeks, and I never stopped, right? And so I started in the middle of the Satanic Panic. I was fortunate; we were living in Pennsylvania at that point by 1982, and I didn't have to suffer during that time. But that is when I started, and then from there, like this is that's the fifth edition right now, and so this is the DMG, right? And I have the DM, and then this is the PHB, and this is all 2024, right? Core rules, and there's the player's handbook. That's all three of them. I have this for 1E, 2E, 3E, 4E, 5E, and now 2024 core rules, and I love them. Like, and I'm extremely passionate about Dungeons and Dragons, and but I also have, I have a highlight of some of my, so like I've moved on, and I really love Marvel Multiverse role playing right now.
Nice.
I Yes, so I
I'm gonna
have,
flip the
yeah,
camera. There we go. Now
there you
it's
go.
okay.
Yeah. So there is this is the old Star Wars from like the early 2000s, the square ones. And I have a
Wow.
story about this if we get to it, back to it later. If we run out. And one thing is I have played every edition of Star Wars all the way back to West End
There we go.
games. And then another huge one, this is essentially this is a summary of my TTRPG history. Shadowrun. Oh my god,
Shadowrun.
every single edition. I've played every single edition. I'm super passionate about Shadowrun. I absolutely love it. This and then and then I have a ton of books like this, right? So like this is Dream Park, the role playing game.
Nice.
And Mike Pondsmith wrote this, and I'm
Love his work.
yes,
Love
agree.
his
Yeah,
work.
I really like him, but I also so I know there's like this a split, like there's a little bit of politics in TTRPGs. I love that there's some diversity, and like he not only was he representing a group that might not have had all the representation they needed, but he was also a banger writer. He was both. He
Yeah.
did representation, but he was also incredibly effective.
Well,
Um,
he is what I would call diversity done right. He happens to be a black person, but he is massively skilled and
right,
intelligent in his work, and,
exactly.
and deserves doesn't get as much credit as he deserves, in my opinion. I
Yeah,
love his stuff. I've been a fan of Art Talzorian since the original Mechton in the 80s.
nice. That's a
So
great call out.
it's still got it
Yeah.
on my shelf. So thank you. Thank
One
you.
thing
Yeah,
that's yeah. One thing
I'm
that's
like
really
you. I have all of the editions. I had to buy the new books, even if I'm only like with fifth edition. All I bought were the 3 core books. And I haven't really played them. I went the Castles and Crusades road around that time, so that's one of the reasons really wanted to have you on the show. Is you're one of the few 2024 stands that I
oh
know.
yeah, huge.
You
I
know,
absolutely love it. Yeah, and it's interesting because not only is it good, but I actually think it's sold quite a bit. There's a huge debate on what the numbers are,
mhm.
and I think and that this is the other thing is I am like that's another thing is I consider myself a Don Quixote protector of Dungeons and Dragons against a grognard set. I really stand against grognardism. I really don't like. Back in the day, I really feel passionate that if you love Dungeons and Dragons, stay on the fresh, stay on the new. Anything you need to blow dust off the cover, I'm just like, it's
Why?
great. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, great. Yeah.
Why?
Good. Here's why. Because yeah, there's a whole lot of reasons. I'll give one. Right. I'm not selfish. D&D dies with them. In fact, I would say a lot of grognards want D&D to die with them. I don't want that. I want, I was 9 years old when I discovered. I was 12 when I started playing, and I want a 9-year-old to hear about it today and 3 years later come in and start playing. And I want that to be happening 100 years from now. And I'm telling you right now, if you don't stay on the new, I feel like you are not supporting Dungeons and Dragons. What you're actually supporting is a very sad, nostalgic feeling in yourself, which I think is selfish, right? And so if you're playing the new, fresh stuff, you are honoring Gary Gygax. There is no better way to honor Gary Gygax than to make sure his name is known 300 years from now. And the way to make sure that it's gone in 3 months is to embrace 1E, 2E, 3E, 4E, in my opinion. I'll give you your take on that.
Uh, I really feel that there does need to be new things made and published. There does need to be a new edition. And I like the 2024 books. I don't love them, but I feel kind of similar about 5e. I like them, but I don't love them. Um, the art, I'm not a particularly big fan of. It doesn't move me. It doesn't grab hold of me like the early editions do, and that's the heart of the Grognardia, really. However, I do feel like the 1E and 2E and all the various editions, there's space for them to exist. I'm actually happy to be talking to people who still, you know, advocate for and play those things actively, because they do have things to teach us about that can be adapted to the later editions. I think in the newer editions, it's definitely much more of a superhero role playing experience than it is in previous editions, because just by the simple fact that you have cantrips that never go away and they're actual seriously useful spells.
Yeah, I'm following you there.
Mhm.
I get what I think is interesting is people talk about art. So like, I really do love the new material. So this came out a week ago, right? Like this is like so
Mhm.
this is Forgotten Realms, and it is specifically Heroes of Faerun, the player expansion. And then this is, and these are brand new. Like these were on, I bought these on the shelf last week, right? And what's interesting is this is Forgotten Realms, and it is the Adventures in Faerun, the Dungeon Master expansion. And like old people are like, well, I don't like the art. And what blows me away is like, first of all, there were two different covers for each one of these books, right?
Mhm.
There's 100 pieces of art in here, and it's not just pieces of art from uh it's not just pieces of art from the Dungeons and Dragons library. There are like 6 to 8 to maybe 10 pieces in each one of these that are straight from Magic the Gathering. They are Magic the Gathering cards that have Dungeons and Dragons on them, right? And so all these grognards are sitting out there whining, going, "Oh, AI and taking jobs and blah blah blah." You know what takes jobs? When you play 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and don't buy the material that is literally putting food on the table for 1,000 artists today at a rate that wasn't, that in the 80s and 90s wasn't even heard of, right? The Magic the Gathering is
Mm.
now canon to D&D, right? If you want to support artists, buy the new material. And so I just really feel that the grognard, it's nonsense. It's just utter selfish, ridiculous nonsense. They whine about AI, and then they don't buy what is actually feeding artists today, right? More, and not just a little bit.
Mm.
There are thousands of pieces of art coming out every single year from Magic the Gathering, which is Dungeons and Dragons. There's no division between the two of them. They're literally the same thing now. There's canon that flows
Yeah.
in every direction, right? And and so that's, to me, like, if you're going to support art, support art. Don't pretend to support art. And I go hard against Grognardia, because I just don't want to be that dusty old crusty dude, whining about back in the day. I just can't do it. And I
Embrace
don't.
the
Yeah,
new.
yes, exactly. At every age. And the other reason too is I agree with you, right? I think these grognards have a ton of information that needs to get to the newer generations. And there is no better way to make sure that none of them hear you, none of them ever come to your table, and none of them ever invite you to your table than to clutch these old tomes. There's just Grognardia sucks at every level. I stand against it.
Good. Well, I'm glad to have an opinionated person here. I often agree with them too much. I will stand up for the old ones. I did. They deserve to exist. I do like the new stuff too, and I do want to see new stuff happen. I do. I wish that they diversified the offerings even more. I wish that there was a lot less gun shy stuff about like re-release Dark Sun and all of its horrible, terrible glory. Um, and I guess that's one of the things that, yeah, in third edition, I really got burned out on the expansion madness. It was just
Well,
so many
that
books,
was
so
an
many books.
explosion. It was, yeah. And
Yeah,
actually, I get that.
it was bad
Yeah,
in 2E2, to
they
be
literally
honest.
called them
But
splat books. I
yeah,
understand it, but they have definitely fixed that problem, and they've controlled it much better. And actually, they put out about 3 to 5
I
products a
can't
year.
I can't speak with authority, but I'm not hearing good things about most of the books that come through.
Oh,
Not
well, I
not
think,
glowing things. Like you're the only one,
well,
honestly.
you're in the grognard set, am I right? You're talking to mostly grognards,
Okay,
right?
yeah, that's
Yeah,
probably
exactly.
fair. That
And
I
then,
think that's
and
probably
actually,
fair.
this is my entire point. I've made a point to really fight against the lies that grognards tell about the new books. Most of them don't know what they're talking about. They're basically three guys peruse them in an FLGS, and then four good grognard channels say something and 1,000 repeat their lies. It's just, and I, and like when I just held the books up, I have them, I read them. I already have shorts on my channel. Like, so when I say they're good, it's not just like, oh, me complaining. And so, and I think now the one thing I will say is the problem is starting to fix itself. And it's very sad how, but grognards are literally dying. So like it is going to go to the new generation. And I'm excited. Like, we're about to get Stranger Things season 5. That's going to do more to fight Grognardia than anything Scott Garibay can do, because it's going to be literally millions of people interrupting their Thanksgiving dinner to rush over and watch the latest Stranger Things, and that is showing the old and then pointing them to the new. Because if they get excited, they're not going to find AD&D on the shelves. They're going to find brand new 2024 core rule books, and I think if you talk to anybody under 50, they love it, right? Like, and I don't even think it's debatable. Like, I do think the art is way better. And like, I don't, this is another one. Like Grognardi is like, the art was better. Was it? Right? The art when the game started was literally garbage, copied from comic books from Gary's friends. They weren't even real artists, right? They didn't even hit real artists until the 80s. And you'll still hear, and then Shadow Dart copied that. They're like, hey, remember when art in D&D sucked? Like, and so you have the people saying the art is bad. It's not objective. Like, in between 1974 and 1979, the art was literal garbage, was drawn by Gary's friends, traced out of comics. It's not even remotely debatable. It was bad art, right? Like, whereas
Right.
today,
Yeah.
today it is phenomenal. But go ahead.
And the counterpoint is those pictures move me as much or more than all the colorful glam that's in the current books.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Definitely not the case for me. I really like, and yeah, yeah, and I won't double down on my point. I think I made my point.
No, well,
Oh,
at
you know what?
that point, it's an aesthetic divide. It's
Yeah,
we're each debating which one
yeah.
impacts us better.
So let me finish out my highlights from my
Please
so
do,
yeah, yeah,
please
absolutely.
do.
So I'm very fortunate. I started right away on Runehammer, his stuff. So he does Index Card RPG. This is
I have it.
Viking Death Squad,
I don't
and
have
like,
that one.
well, you want to talk about good art? Very simple,
Yes.
very raw, like just phenomenal stuff. And
So that's another one, super talented artist, and he definitely gives me that feel. I love ICRPG, and I think every gamer should have it in their collection
absolutely.
just for the aesthetic value of the book itself.
And also it's the best distillation of D&D that's ever been accomplished. I think it's really good. I'm really proud of this. This is Marvel Superheroes, the original game book. I actually have the box, and this was diceless. So this had a card system, was from the mid 90s. Most people don't even know about this. And I have this from when I bought it in the mid 90s. If one, I think it would be extremely difficult to even buy this today, and the reason why is it has no dice. It has like a set of 75 cards, which are all printed like Marvel heroes. And to get the box, the books, and the cards, I think is well over $1,000. So this is one of my favorites.
Wow.
I absolutely love the Marvel, and that was a TSR product. Also, just like Gamma World, and this is the 4th edition Gamma World. I have
Wow.
every edition of Gamma World, and I'm a huge fan of Gamma World.
That's one that somehow passed me by all these years. I've
It's
never
wild.
played Gamma
Yeah.
World and never known anybody who owned it.
That's another thing that I really like about this one is, and that's another entire topic that we can get into at any point if we run out of topics. But this had tokens and cards, and right now there's a huge push in Dungeons and Dragons. It's really wild. So the current Heroes of the Borderland, I bought that thing and I read this thing, and this is why I really encourage people to stop listening to grognards, because if you pay attention to what's actually happening on Dungeons and Dragons right now, it's astonishing. I could not believe my eyes when I read Heroes on the Borderland and understood what was actually happening. So I don't think anybody's figured this out yet, but Heroes
Okay.
on the Borderland it has these class boards. They look like consoles, and then you put these tokens down, and it has cards. And what blew me away is like, oh my gosh, I realized it. You can play 3 levels of Dungeons and Dragons through the Caves of Chaos, through the Wilderness Adventures, and through the Keep on the Borderlands. All 3 of those locations, and never pick up a pencil. And I was like, what? So it is Dungeons and Dragons with literally no writing, right? And I haven't heard anybody talk about this on either side, right? And the reason why is one of the things I love about Dungeons and Dragons is it's so amorphous and so complex that it does something before people even realize what it's doing, right? And so right now I see the game going to a point where, like, because I was always like, it's too complicated, right? And this
Mhm.
last one, Heroes on the Borderland, is literally, I call it scribeless Dungeons and Dragons. You don't even have to write anything down. And I think the reason why is they're like, hey, I know you got 2 degrees. I literally have 2 degrees, but I think D&D has been for smart people for a long time. And they're like, hey, what if a blue collar plumber could play? And doing 3 levels
Mhm.
and never even picking up a pencil, because we lose so many people with that tax form, um, you know, uh, character sheet. And so just the idea of Dungeons and
Hmm.
Dragons with no writing just astonished me. So then as far as
That's
cards,
interesting.
yeah,
I'll be interested to see if that takes really takes root,
right,
because I
where it
really
goes.
think you have a valid point there. Is
Yeah, yeah.
that
And also, like,
I'm not a fan of that. I'll say
well,
there.
I'm
I
curious
think
why. Do you want it?
lowering the barrier of entry is
Well, I'll press you on that. Why do you not want smart people? Why do you think there needs to be an intelligence test to play D&D?
I think that I want the more intelligent forms to exist because that's what I want to engage in. That's what the hobby means to me. So if it dumbs down to the point where writing is not involved anymore, hmm.
I would
You know,
challenge you, like I said
so
earlier, and
does it have to be a
I said
dumbing down?
earlier, my problem with the Grognardia take is selfishness. What you just said had a whole lot of me in it. What it meant to me,
Okay,
what it was,
I own
what it
that.
mean. And I hate to say it, but like think about it, right? You and me are wizened old Gandalfs, right? We got what, 10, 20, years left, right? But to me, like, if you
Speak
really
for
love D&D,
yourself. I got another 50, 60, easy,
good luck with
easy.
that.
What's
And that's my issue is, to me, I care a lot more that the next generation is playing than that what I feel comfortable with is preserved, right? And I do, and I will say, I see it as a virtual war. It's a bloodless war, but the edition wars are not over. And I don't want anyone who wants to preserve Dungeons and Dragons to stop one 14-year-old from starting to play. And I'm so tired of it. And I also, I hate to say, I think grognards are just outrageously selfish and completely self-unaware of it. It is galling to me, and I want D&D to grow, and I want grognards to be challenged for their selfishness personally. So
good?
I'll keep going here.
Good.
So this is
Good.
go you wanted to respond.
And
Go ahead.
my only response to that, and by no means I don't think it shouldn't exist. I think it should exist, but it should be a stepping stone, hopefully, for rather than kids becoming bored and thinking this is it's too simple. Like if to me it sounds almost like playing Hero Quest, right? More along that level of complexity. The levels 1 through 3 don't have to write anything down. I would like the avenue for the more advanced levels of play, the people who do want those more antiquated aspects, those will always have an appeal. And I think those aspects of the hobby. So you're right. Having an influx of tons of new people coming in does nothing but invigorate the hobby as a whole, including all the indie publishers.
Well, it's interesting
Because
because go
tons
ahead.
of young people are playing Shadow Dark too, right?
No, that's not true. That is not even remotely true. I just went to Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo, right? And the dude who ran it was for me was literally 70, right? And I saw it. Like Kelsey Dion was there. And
Mhm.
this is my entire point. Grognards just love to tell themselves these stories. It's not happening. There are not a bunch of young people coming in and saying, "Oh, I'm going to skip that shiny, beautiful book that's on the shelf and play your jank Shadow Dark that can't even make it to the shelves." Right? I
All
live
right.
in. Yeah. Go
It's
ahead.
anecdotal, but I have had people say that they see tons of Shadow Dark tables at their conventions,
Oh,
but
there's
there are also
tons of
smaller, more indie conventions that aren't heavy on the
Shadow
D&D.
Dark is getting played, but it's getting played by old people who and yes, I would say there's one
Okay.
out of if
All
you're
right.
lucky if 1 out of 8 are there. And this is a terrible topic. Like the other thing, I'll behave because like this is another thing is like I feel like
Oh, don't you dare
yeah,
hold back on me
yeah.
now.
Here we go. Here we
Come
go.
on.
All right. So Dungeons and Dragons is so special and so unique, right? And one of the things is that I don't think most people really know what Dungeons and Dragons is. And then the other thing is I don't think people know why people are sitting down at any of these tables, right? And I will tell you right now, if there are young people at these Shadow Dark, there's a few, right? I would say 1 out of 8 are young people playing Shadow Dark, right? And the reason they're there is they got dragged there. They got dragged there by their old uncle. I've seen it. Like the dude who ran mine, right? He was like, he bought a copy from Kelsey, right? Like special because it's so hard to get anywhere. It took me 2 years to find that thing on shelves, right? And this is the other thing is people talk about Shadow Dark. I'm like, this thing is a nothing burger. It doesn't even make it to shelves. It hasn't been in print. And that's not me saying it. Kelsey has said flat out that she did not sell it on Amazon and purposefully did not send it to most FLGSs. You had to have a special relationship with them. And what blows my mind is these old grognards are so impressed with something that resonates at the frequency of their 14-year-old, memory that they're willing to print the book, right? And it's just I think Shadow Dark is junk. Absolutely. Compared to this, like how can you even hold yourself, head up? This is world class art. The stuff,
Incorrect, but I respect it. I
yeah,
respect
and
it.
so yeah,
Yes.
so and it is, and the thing is, there is, and the edition wars are hotter than they've ever been. Like I because I think the grognards are like trying to raise the banner while they can still clutch it in their hands and lift it up, but I do think the grognardia is really on
Uh,
big time. So, oh yeah, and I'll get all the way through. So, this one was a big one. This is Crown and Skull. That's also from Runehammer. I love this because the coolest thing about this was when you take damage, you don't have a hit point pool. You literally get damage your equipment and your skills. Like so, you mark off your skills and your equipment. I ran, and this is another thing I love about YouTube. So I ran a Crown and Skull campaign, right? And then
mhm.
every campaign, not every, I would say 80% of the campaigns I do, I actually do summaries on my channel. And so like people could go and listen to the entirety and see all their notes and all that kind of stuff. So I love that. That Crown and Skull was really exceptional. And then, and I am a huge ICRPG guy. So Index Card RPG, like we talked about. And then the other thing that's fantastic is the Runehammer physical store is in Philadelphia. And I made my pilgrimage a while back, and I go over there every now and then. And it's very nice to have Brandish Gilhelm right in my backyard and to be able to,
Nice.
and everything I buy from him, I get signed, and it's really nice. It's pretty cool.
That's excellent. Yeah,
So
I've
that's,
never met him.
yeah,
Love it. Love his
yeah,
channel. Love his stuff. And
yeah.
like I said, I'm a huge fan of ICRPG. It's elegant game design. I think it's a worthy addition to anybody's collection for a
Oh, yeah.
variety of reasons. Not the
I
least
would,
of which.
yeah, I totally agree. I think, and if you're serious, like if you're writing your own tabletop role playing games, or if you just take yourself serious as a dungeon master, even if you're on the dungeon master side, his material is so innovative. Uh, if you're serious about TTRPGs in any way, you can't sleep on TTR on Index Card RPG. It's really the best out
Yeah,
there.
yeah. It really
Beyond
does
D&D.
boil that core D20 system that we have down to
Yeah,
its bare essentials
yeah.
and its key concepts and allows you to build out anything. And again, that's a game that has 5 full ready to go settings in it right there, that all with the same rule set. You got to love that kind of versatility in the game.
Yeah. So now I showed you some of my favorites. Like Dream Park is really special to me. Is there anything that's really beyond? I know you're a fan of D&D.
Oh
Beyond
yeah.
D&D, is there any other games on the OSR or indie side that really resonated with you in the past or are resonating with you now?
So, one of my enduring loves and favorites is Castles and Crusades. It is the pinnacle of it is, I consider it a pinnacle of the OSR style game
Yep.
design with the Siege engine. It's a one simple core mechanic that covers everything I need it to do, and I can readily use all of my first and second edition modules that I still have with no modifications. I also do have a bias because I'm credited as a playtester in the
Oh, nice.
front page of the book.
That's
So,
Troll Lord Games, correct?
correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I saw those guys. So I'm very blessed. I'm right in Philadelphia. So we have PAX Unplugged, which is
Yes.
huge and absolutely. And so so I went last year to PAX Unplugged, and then I went to Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo, and my plan is to do the same thing this year. But PAX Unplugged is just like massive. It has so much. But Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo is really nice. It's tiny. It's like you go from like 45,000 to last year. I think they had like 2,500, but they're going to go up to about 4,000 this year. It's expected. But Troll Lord Games was there, and they had Castles and
Mhm.
Crusades. And I know among the OSR, a lot of people feel that Castles and Crusades, like it resonates with Gary's energy the most, which I'm aware of that.
Mhm.
It is interesting, I think. And one thing I was impressed with Troll Lord Games. This is one of the coolest things I learned when I was there. Third edition came out, and there was that explosion from Ryan Dancy brings forward the OGL, and there
Yeah.
was and they allowed anybody to make a D&D book, and there was an explosion of content. That was between 2000 and 2006, right? That was the height of that, right? And there were literally hundreds of companies that started then. There's only 5 left. Troll Lord Games is one of them. Frog God Games is one of them, and then there's a few others. But of all those companies, they just all got swept away by a tsunami of time and difficulty. And
Right.
Troll Lord Games is still there, still making stuff. I went to quite a few of their panels. They did a very good job representing their game. And it was also I also got to ask some questions about Lorraine Williams, and
Hmm.
because they had been around for so long, and it was nice to see them. They're an impressive company, and also it is very difficult to make it on the OSR and the indie side, and I know they've been like tooth and claw in it for decades and are
Yeah,
still doing
yeah.
it.
Through
Yeah,
thick and thin, they've got plenty of war stories about thin times and tough times for them. But they're doing good. They're doing
yeah.
real good. So, pleasure, and definitely, it's a singular honor for me to even be in one of their
That's
books.
awesome. That's really good that you
Yeah,
were able to help playtest. That's fantastic.
yeah, yeah. That was
Yeah.
that happened way back in the day, and I still have the character sheet of the character I use, and I
Oh,
use it as
nice.
my banner on X. So
Oh,
I think
yeah,
you put it
nice.
in
I've
my
seen that.
profile. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it
Okay.
was
Yeah, that's
Cello.
that character I
Yeah.
played. Yep. Yep.
So, was that one of the yellow sheets? Did they I think it
Yeah,
was, yeah,
the guy who was running it for us, they're all old grognards going back to first edition, and they're part of that crew. When
yeah.
fourth edition happened, they said, "Okay, nah, we're not doing that." They continued to play third edition for a little while, and then switched full on to Castles and Crusades, and that's how I got introduced to it. And but yeah, it was an amazing little story there. The
It wa
the goldenrod is he specifically had it printed to mimic those first edition character sheets that
Yep.
got bought in the binder, those infamous ones.
Yeah. So
Golden.
what was nice was I just bought the Welcome to the Hellfire Club, which is so there were 2 D&D starter boxes that came out this fall. In fact, this fall has been filled. There have been 4 official D&D products within 3 months. And so Welcome to Hellfire Club came out, and every character in the Hellfire Club on Stranger Things is there, like Lady Applejack and um, you know Will and Mike, all the main characters, and then also Lucas's sister. All of their characters are printed in the box. A character sheet for level 1, a character sheet for level 2, a character sheet for level 3. It's the same thing, right? You don't need to use all the starter boxes are going to component D&D where you do not need a pencil. Everything's printed on cards,
Mhm.
power tokens, miniatures, all in one box. But one thing that the reason why I mention it here is there's actually 5 different characters, each printed 3 times. So that's 15 characters in the box, and all of them are on that perfect goldenrod. So and that's the thing I love about the new stuff is if you know the old, when you are coming to the new, there is a huge celebration of the old in the new, right? And I wish, and if more grognards were there, right, when those books are opened at tables that are actually, getting played, right, by the thousands, then they could say, hey, those are the guys from the 1983, cartoon, and explain, that they saw them there. But there's this division, right? There's this division between the young people and the old people, and I wish that divide was less, but it's where we're at. So.
It is. Well, and I guess that the real divide is that the grognards that you speak of, they look at those books and they don't see and feel the love of what came before. Matter of fact, they feel kind of the opposite. They feel a disparagement and hatred to a degree.
Right.
So,
And here's and I totally understand that. And my take on that is, like I said, I'm extremely aware of this. It's just old man grump grump. Like it is, I just don't like they like to wrap it in a million different present bows and pretend that there's value for it, but like I just really feel like if I'm also an evangelical Christian, right? And so I go to church and there's literally 80, 90s. We celebrated the 100th anniversary of somebody recently, right? And when you get older, you get to the point where you're just complaining, right? And I just feel like Grognardia is not actually opinions about tabletop role playing games. It's an ignorance that if you do nothing but complain, no one will listen to you. And I just really, and like Grognardia literally means old complainer. And I'm just so astonished at the ignorance of the Grognard set. They're
yes,
like, I am grumpy and
yes.
it's cool. No, it's pathetic and sad. And you have a lot to teach people. And if you stop clutching to your nostalgia and actually use the money you have now because you're old and you've earned it to buy new stuff, you can bring people in, and so I'm hoping that that's going to start to change, but we'll see what happens, so. And I am seeing some change in it, and one of the reasons why is things like Daggerheart, right? Like like we talked about Troll Lord Games, right? They're going into thin times again. It's going to be harder and harder for them to sell their products, right? And because of politics, we're in the middle of, tariffs are going to make it more and more difficult for every OSR and indie. So it'll be interesting to see where it all lands. But yeah.
Pardon me, a little frog in my throat.
No worries, no worries. Yeah, absolutely. You have a very live chat, which is very nice.
Crotchety old wizards is a part of the job description. Clever comment from a beautiful, sophisticated woman.
Indeed.
No pearl clutching. So now I reserve the right to clutch my pearls. Now and I think that every old person has the right to complain. But the thing is, you are correct that we all did it when no one listens to old people. And the problem is, it seems to be like nobody listens to old people whether they complain or not.
Oh no, I don't think that's true. I think if you
Oh,
are if you fight against, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so adamant to not be that old grump grump. Like I want people, and I actually believe that's one of the reasons why my channel is growing. I mean, my channel is growing, right? So like, and I'm very careful. I watch, like, I've been doing this 12 years, and I had one period where my channel did not grow. So so I break virtually every rule of YouTubing. And one of the things I do is I discuss D&D and I discuss politics, right? Like I just put different labels on them, right?
Mhm.
And you're not supposed to do this, but one of the blessings of my channel is I don't need to worry about money. I've never asked anybody for a dime. I don't have to worry about patrons or any of that nonsense. I can say what I want. And so I really like that Oh, and yeah. So the one time my things went down was I stumped for Andrew Yang. I advocated for Andrew Yang to be president. Yeah, I did about 800 videos on him, and I had a huge spike in growth from Andrew Yang people. Then he crashed, and I lost about 700 viewers, right, or
Got it.
700 yeah subscribers. And now and I just kept doing it, kept going, and now doing what I want, covering what I want, my channel is still growing, even though I'm a 55-year-old man. And I will tell you right now, I think that, getting, if you're old, if you're an old dude and you have a channel that's actually growing, that's because you aren't complaining and you are talking about new things and you are adopting. But I'll tell you right now, I think if you think you're going to grow a channel selling Grognardia Grump Grump, that ain't going to work. I don't believe that for 1 second.
That Well, there's an alternative market out there to be sure, but it is certainly a
Pretty small.
fraction of yes, it's live. JB got rockets.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
So, of course, it's live.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yeah,
Pardon
can't you
me, I
see
had
us
to go.
hurtling through space? Yeah, yeah.
It's live. It's as live as it can be. I mean, we have that time space differential. We've got alternate universes, quantum theory things. That's it.
Yes, indeed.
He doesn't recognize you without a car.
There you go. Yes, indeed. Yeah. Yeah,
And
actually,
that's why I made a thumbnail of a goblin riding in a car with a wizard.
yes, yes, yes. Yeah, so that's actually been a huge differentiator as well. That's another thing that shocks me, that my con and it's and like my view numbers are growing, my subscriber numbers are growing, and that is outrageously difficult to do, and because there's just so many people have shuttered, right? Like, I've been here 12 years. I can list off the web DM guys, right? Those guys,
Yeah.
they had 100K sub button. They had
Yep.
two dudes doing it. They were making thousands of dollars. They started after me and they finished years before me, right? And so this is one of the reasons why I absolutely refuse to go down the Grognardia road, because I just feel like it keeps you small, it keeps you, and it's literally trying to chase an audience that's dying, right? I just don't think it's wise. But yeah, and the other thing is, I don't need to, I'm not losing anything. I love going to the FLGS and seeing new stuff on the shelf for me, which is great. And I don't understand how the Grognard community thinks they're gonna win with nothing on the shelves, right? Like, it just, yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah, well, I do have to confess I'm skeptical of the argument. I think, though, that the older editions should still be in print and available to buy for people who want it. So I don't know if there's a fear of cannibalizing your own sales and stuff like that, but or
Well,
what the
no, I
problems are.
think well,
I think they should be available like they were.
Well, I don't think it's an accident that they're not selling those. Frog God Games actually has a license. They made Temple of Metal Evil. They did a great job with it. So, but you're exactly right. Like all those old folios, right? They're extremely hard to get, right?
Mhm.
If you want them in print. And I don't think it's an accident. I think Hasbro knows exactly what they're doing. And the reason why is, I don't think there's any reason to do anything for the Grognard set. And then one of the reasons why is they're almost never happy. They never have a kind word for Hasbro. And it's much easier and much more beneficial to ignore them and give them nothing than to give them anything. And so I think that those things are kept out of print because they don't want to feed the beast, right? Because I think the Grognard set overall bites the hand it feeds it far
Yeah.
more than it ever comes up and looks for pets, or and that's the other issue. Now, I will say this though, I am cantankerous and curmudgeonly, but I try to use that to defend Dungeons and Dragons and to grow Dungeons and Dragons. And I just feel a ton of Grognards want D&D to die with them, like to go into the grave with them.
Is there in some way then that you're convincing yourself that the newest is the greatest?
Oh no, it's super easy. Like, are you like, well, I can walk over and get like the PHB right now. The PHB from the 1980s is all in black and white. The layout's terrible. The rules are hardly cohesive, right? Whereas the new D&D 5e Like this stuff is tight as a drum, fantastic art, amazing layout, and like I don't have to convince myself of anything. In fact, I think it's such everything on the grognard side is just such like vapor and myth, right? In that, like, this is real, this is on the
Wow.
shelves, right? Whereas there's a guy, local, he is AD&D only, and he has like 6 copies of the old. And the reality is, I just feel like he keeps people captive. I think a lot of this nostalgia is just keeping people captive. And what's interesting is people do like how does this work? How does a grognard? I got a dude in my local area, right? He's really high up in the community. A lot of people love him. All he'll play is AD&D, or actually, that's his main thing. And he wants people to play AD&D with him. And he has 6 copies of the
Okay.
PHB, and he
Right.
literally, hands them out. And so, how do you do this? And we haven't even really talked about this, but I think dungeon masters are inherently charismatic, confident, intelligent, and so people want to and
Me.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Checks so far. Yeah.
right. And I don't think a lot of grognards understand how like imposing they are. They're imposing their old nostalgia on people rather than joining the
Mm,
party. That there's a literal party that's happening on new D&D, right? And nothing is happening on old D&D. And so why on earth would you drag people to these old crusty tomes when if you join, you get the new stuff, you sit down at your FLGS, you join the ongoing real party that's happening now, and you guys can get a Stranger Things pizza and Eggo waffles. Like right now, if you
mhm.
like current D&D, you can buy cereal off the shelves that has a D20 on the side, right? Whereas if you like AD&D, nothing anywhere, right? You're like, hey, help me celebrate this dead husky tome, right? Come into the crypt and let's sit in the dirt together. Like Grognardia sucks. It is the worst, right? And I don't understand how it even has a foothold left. It's really weird. And there's so much happening on new Dungeons and Dragons. And in fact, there's so much happening on new Dungeons and Dragons, it can't even be covered, right? Like every new magic set that comes out, there's Lego sets that are coming out. If you love now D&D, there's a blooming flower everywhere you look. And if you're dragging people to these crusty old dirt tomes, why do people do it and why do people sit for it? I have no idea, right? Well, I do have an idea. It's because Gary built this filter for charismatic, confident, intelligent people, which I think is interesting. Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you about the human improvement engine.
You got it. Yeah, let's go. Okay.
Let's dive into that. I love it. So, where did this notion strike you, and how long have you had it? Does this go back a long way?
Well, yeah, so it's a great question. So I I I would say it's about 8 years old, right? And I've been playing D&D my whole life, and I started to learn about the history of Gary Gygax. And the more I looked into it, I was like, wait a second, there's some weird stuff here. So Gary was born in 1938, okay? He's born in 1938. He goes and then by the time he's 7 years old, you're looking at 1945. At this point, he's seen the first 2 nuclear bombs explode, right?
Mhm.
His life continues forward. He sees Vietnam War. He sees the Korean War. He sees like World War One was terrible. Okay, but World War Two was worse. I actually think it's tough. They were both pretty horrible. But
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah,
it's hard to
yeah.
argue, but
World War One was a meat grinder. Yeah, I know how bad World War One was.
it is an
Yeah,
argument. Yeah, I
right. Yeah,
agree.
exactly. But we dropped 2 nukes, right? And the other thing is, like, it's really wild. I paid very close attention. The other thing is that people don't talk a lot about, but Gary had to move from Illinois to Wisconsin, and the reason why was they were in Chicago and there was violence, and there's some people believe that that early on, um, Gary was mixed up in some like the wrong side of the track stuff in Chicago, right? So
Mhm.
he saw nothing but violence and blood and death, right? And so as I looked at his life, I was like, I keep asking this question, what is Dungeons and Dragons? And I'm still asking it today because I don't think we know. I think I know better than anyone on the planet what Dungeons and Dragons is. And I do believe it's a human improvement engine. And so it has to do with narrative and identity. So basically, at this point, I can't imagine my life without Dungeons and Dragons. At this point,
Agreed.
I have experiences, emotions, sensations of 30 people who have seen the sunset on 30 different worlds, right? And I don't, and this is not all there is to Scott Garibay. In fact, I feel like I have overflowed. I needed these pages to overflow into, right? There's just more of me here. And so that is an identity issue, right? And I weep for people who live uh in one container, right? And I think that overflows in recreational substance abuse, in drinking, in connecting with people they shouldn't be connecting with, or connecting with too many people, and I believe there's a lot of behavior because people are overflowing this, right? And they don't know what to do with it. Gary was like, "This is what you do with it, right? There's too much you in you, and it needs to come." And then so not only is there a release valve on identity that Gary put forward, but then also the narrative, right? We talked about antiquated ways of messaging, right? So every author, the Gutenberg Bible came out, and then everybody's printing and they're writing stuff. I am an evangelical Christian, so I always make this caveat. D&D is the best secular narrative tool ever created, right? And so basically you have this situation where uh, an author comes, they write a book. You and me did it. We wrote a book, and we didn't really care about, we maybe cared about a few people, but we can't change that story to match the literal second by second emotion, right? Whereas when I tell a story to, 5 people at my kitchen table, which is 20 feet
Mhm.
away, when somebody raises an eyebrow, I can adjust that story, right?
It
And
it
right,
changes live. Yes, I know
right,
what you mean. You
exactly,
play to the audience.
right, exactly. And like even plays, right? Like it's written and they may read the line a little different, right? But we are doing a level of storytelling, a level of narrative that is unparalleled, unfounded, and that we have barely scratched the surface on, right? And we can tell stories in directions that nobody can. And then, so we have this limitlessness, but we're also bound by the math rocks, which is, but the DM is
Mhm,
making the story,
mhm.
the players are making the story, but both of them are interrupted by fate itself, which makes the story more grounded and more realistic than anything you will ever find in a book, anything you will ever. And the other thing is, we're not bound. Like I just watched this horrible crap movie. It's called Play Dirty on Amazon Prime, and it was Shane Black. He actually did Die Hard, right?
Mm,
And
mhm,
see, they've
mhm.
got these tough guys, and they're like, we're tough dudes." And I'm like, "You're driving a Rivian e-car. No character would ever do that. None of these tough guys would be like, you know what I need? I need an electric pickup truck, right? And the reason it's there is it's on Amazon, right? And they were paid $250,000 to put a Rivian e-truck into the hands of tough, gruff criminal, right? No
Mhm.
tough, gruff criminal would ever drive an e-car, right? They would laugh and just go get their Mustang, right?
Yeah,
And
that's not
we
John Wick's car.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're not bound by that stuff. We are freed from commercialism. We are freed from the limitations of prose. And all this came from Gary. And it's so powerful. And I'm just so happy that I got to see it. But I'm also, this is why I fight against Grognardia so much, is I think we've barely scratched the surface. We're going to go places with this narrative and with this identity tools that we've never, and people are already saying it. Like they say it all the time. They're like, D&D is my therapy. I don't think that's right. We first of all, nobody. I don't think it's right to say D&D is your therapy. If you have deficiencies, cut them in half with D&D. Don't stop cutting goblins in half and cut your deficiencies in half with D&D. And that's going to take a table with a dungeon master who understands using Dungeons and Dragons as a tool, not just for fun, right? And that's going to take players who are on board, right? And so basically, I feel like we've been driving the car around, which is D&D, and what we're about to do is go into suborbital flight, right? Like that's where I want to go, and that's what I'm working toward, And so I just, and the other great thing is, it's terrible and great at the same time. I have convinced no one, right? And so then I was like, well, if you're convincing no one, they're just going to stop listening to you. That's not the case. I have a growing audience, right? Like, and I keep saying that because I am shocked, right? And I'm on this ride. I'm ready for when my views dip, but they don't, right? Like, and I have weathered storms. I've been doing this for 12 years, talking on YouTube about D&D. I have more videos on it. I've talked about it in greater depth than anybody, in broader depth. And I could say that because I keep saying, "Come at me. If give me your number." So, did you beat me? Nobody has, right? And so, basically, I really am convinced now that I know what D&D is. I know where we're going, and no one else does.
Well, right now I can't step in the ring with you numbers wise, but one day, Garibay, one day.
I hear you.
We do have a fan in here. The Black Lodge Games guys say, if D&D and its clones was not an option to play, what would you play instead?
Well, first of all, my take on how you should play D&D is it's fine to play OSRs and indies. You need to play them at a 49% level, right? So you need to be on D&D 51% of the time. And also, if you're going to play any old D&D, it should be in that 49% block. So you should play and like, I'm not like, oh, you need to play 2024 core rulebooks. I'm saying you need to play whatever D&D is now, right? And so whatever, and there will never be a D&D core rule book set that comes out that I don't buy the moment it drops, right? And um, so basically, but I held up, what do I do beyond that? That's very, it's Crown and Skull, it's
Yeah.
Gamma World, Dream Park. Man, I love that. And so there's tons of great stuff out there, and I'm okay with people. I really want people to stay on D&D, but I understand that there's always I'm
Yeah.
like I follow shiny things too, like a crow, right? And I bought Daggerheart, right? And so and also I will tell you right now, I
I
was
do want to
super
talk about
yeah,
Daggerheart
I
too.
was
That's
super
oh
excited
my
about
gosh.
Daggerheart, but I think Daggerheart is dead. It is fully dead. CR
Was
smashed
it
it all
ever
down.
alive?
Oh, it was. It was. In
It
fact,
was live. Okay,
oh yeah,
they sold the shit out of it.
right, exactly. In fact, my elevator pitch on Daggerheart is Critical Role did it. They did it. They built the D&D killer. Everybody's like, "Oh, when's the D&D killer going to arrive?" It did. Like, so here's what happened. So Daggerheart, CR, it is shocking. Spencer Stark wrote in Candela Obscura. It was absolute garbage. Nobody paid attention to it. I assumed since Candela Obscura was garbage, that Daggerheart would be garbage. It wasn't. I I labored for 2 weeks straight to get Daggerheart in my hands. I had to go into my FLGS 4 days in a row. I bought it 20 minutes from it hitting the shelves, and that book has never been in that shop since. They never restocked it, and I don't know how they knew,
Wow.
but yeah, right. And so I bought it. I read it. I have lots of content up, right? And they did it. It was critically acclaimed and it was commercially acclaimed. It blew off the shelves everywhere, and critics loved it, and everybody was in it. And everybody was like, "Okay, great, you did it. You built a great game, one that's as strong and as good as D&D, and you got the
Mm.
critics on board. Everybody's excited. Okay, now you're going to use it for Critical Role Campaign 4, right? Campaign 4. When they said we're going back to D&D, that's it. Daggerheart's cooked. It's finished. And the best description I heard is, if you don't care to prioritize the game you created, why on earth is anybody else going to prioritize it? It is done. It is dead. They should
It
call it
does. It
Dagger Dead.
does seem to have been an absolute waste of the momentum they had built up.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was the greatest train heist without a doubt. It was the greatest train heist in tabletop role playing game history. Every single copy sold was a trick. And the reason why is they very carefully timed it, right? They were like, everybody's like, "Are you going to use it for campaign 4?" "Oh, we don't know. We don't know. We don't know." "Oh, hey, here's Daggerheart. Are you going to use it for campaign 4?" "Don't worry about that. Go out and buy it. Go out and buy it. Go out and buy it." Right? Everybody bought it.
Yeah,
And they're like, "Guess what? You have a $60 brick in your hand. Nobody's going to want to play it with you because we don't want to play it. It is the greatest train heist in tabletop role-playing game history.
But from what you say, it's actually a good game.
Oh, it's fantastic.
People should play it. People will play it.
No. Nobody should play it. Nobody should play it. It's a fantastic game, and the reason why is it's not going to get supported, right? Like they're literally not supporting it now. The way you would support that is you take your millions of critters and you run campaign 4 with it. And they said, no, this and why did they do it? Why did they not back their own? Here's why. So Spencer Stark did the work. The Critical Role didn't do the work, right? And then in order to actually compete with D&D, that means 60, 80-hour weeks from every Critical Role member. And who's the CEO of Critical Role? That's Travis Willingham. You think he wants to work hard? That guy is practicing his grog voice, right? Do you know what Gary sacrificed to make D&D the #1 game in the world? He sacrificed his marriage. He sacrificed control of the company, right? He had to hand it over to Lorraine Williams. He sacrificed blood, sweat, and tears, right? And so every Critical Role member, okay, there's 9 of them. I could list them by name, right? They're all like, okay, we built it. Now it's time to defeat Dungeons and Dragons. Do we want to work 60, 80 hours a week for a 50-50 chance of beating D&D and do the work to do it? Or do we want to just get in the roller coaster ride and make millions on the back of D&D and just stay loyal to D&D? Do we want to do work, or do we want to ride our do we want to turn off the money faucet and actually pump the water ourselves? And they're like, no, we're not going to actually do real work. And that's why Daggerheart failed. And no one should spend, that is a $60 brick. I will never run that again, I don't think. I keep saying that. I might run it because nobody else is, right? Like the one, like if you're like, and it could be fun, but you're playing it as it's like going into a tomb, like to just look at dead bodies. It's like no one should run Daggerheart at all. That's my take. Yeah.
But that's a good take. I passed on buying it. I was a little leery, especially after hearing what I heard about Candela Obscura. So
it was junk.
It
was real bad. But
Black Lodge Games will attest. I followed their opinions very strongly. So
there's some things that should get stolen from actually not stolen, borrowed from Daggerheart. So they had this thing called frameworks. It was brilliant. And so one of the things is like in D&D, we have D&D is terrible. Like, okay, there's a few things Scott doesn't like about D&D. So settings, right? Dungeons and Dragons is terrible with settings. It has done the worst possible job of presenting settings. And Daggerheart was brilliant. So one of the things it did was it did these things called frameworks. And it was a setting in 8 to 32 pages. And I will tell you right now, every single one of them is as good as Greyhawk, right? Like they're so good. It's a model for how settings should be built for the future. And and I'll stop there because I have other things to say about D&D settings. But what's your take on how D&D handles settings? Are you happy with it?
Well, I'm mostly a homebrew setting guy. So I buy every edition and interpret it through the lens of, well, what does my homebrew setting look like using these rules?
So tell me a little about your homebrew setting. What is it?
It fits within the greater cosmology of D&D. It's what would be called a demi-plane. And it's
sure. I know exactly what you mean by that.
Yep, yeah. It's a small archipelago of islands surrounded by a sea of mists, and every intelligent race in the islands throughout history has some version of we don't.
Oh no! Let me guess.
We came here from someplace else.
Well, let me guess. Your world is to keep species out, correct?
No.
Interesting.
No.
Here's my question. So first of all, I used to run my own custom. I've switched over, and what I do right now is Forgotten Realms, right? And the reason why is I realized Forgotten Realms lets me focus on the part of the story I want to tell. What is in your world that is not in another D&D world, then that's why you use it. Why do you use your custom setting? What's the juice of it?
I would say that this is the weird thing. My world stands out in the sense of what's not in it. It is
right, exactly.
Yeah, I do that. Only No expansion books. So if
Right.
it's from another book, if it's not in the player's handbook,
So there's no
D&D, or master
Tabaxi, there's
manual,
no Leonin, there's no
mhm,
Vidalkin, exactly. And I
yes,
knew that, and
yes,
I'm so sorry. Every grognard creates their own world to exclude species. I've like this is it's rock solid. I knew it before you even said it. Yep, yep, yeah.
yes. Okay,
Uh,
yeah, it keeps species out now, and I think that goes back to, it's one of the reasons I resonate heavily with Castles and Crusades, because it feels and plays the choices of classes and races that you can play very closely matches the early first edition experience. So
yeah.
that it really does evoke that same feel, and that's where that's part of the aesthetic shift of, once we get into tieflings and pandas and whoever, what are leonins, all that stuff, I'm like, I lost it at tieflings. They lost me in fourth edition because that was one of the few times that the core books failed me, because I couldn't do my campaign world that I built in third edition completely in fourth edition using just the core rule books. I had to include player's handbook too, and even then I didn't have rules from monks.
I'm following you. So it is interesting. So I will say my the thing I do hate about D&D settings is one, it got so, and you know the history here a bit too.
Mhm.
So you got so basically Gary came. They had just the generic world, and it really wasn't even named. They have Mistara now. Fortunately, Mistara is gone. They don't really do anything with Mistara
Yeah,
today, and
no, not
that's good.
anymore.
But they have Greyhawk, and they still have Greyhawk around. But my problem is there's no need for it. It is absolutely bunk, and it is useless at this point in current D and D. And the reason why is Forgotten Realms is one, right? So you have Ed Greenwood's material, you have other people bringing stuff into in Ed Greenwood's world. Also, Forgotten Realms is the Dritz Do'Urden, and that's by far the most famous character. But
Right. Yeah.
yeah, but there's just too, like, I don't understand why they kept Greyhawk around. They should have nixed it. They did nix Mistara, and I think at this point they should just say, hey, the D&D realms is Forgotten Realms. I am down with Eberron because I think it's distinct enough. Like there's a reason to have it. It's not just another
Sure. Sure.
Forgotten
Sure.
Realms. Yeah. And
Mhm.
then I also think they should kibosh and just say no more basic standard like Exandria, which Matthew Mercer from Critical Role wrote. There's two books for that. There's Explorer's Guide to Wild Mount, and there's Call of the Neverdeep. But that is not different enough from, like, if you're going to bring a setting for D&D, it better have some real differences, right? And at
Mhm.
this point,
Mhm.
I think the reason why they let Exandria get away with it is Critical Role has become an absolute force of nature. It's like a whirling tornado, and I really feel like CR is the cutting edge of Dungeon Dragons, and so they would let Matthew Mercer scrawl something on a napkin and print it direct, right? And so that's why Alexandria got
Sure.
away from it, got
Yeah.
away with it, which is interesting. So dark side.
Hailing back a little ways, Patty had asked, "What does that mean, 5149?" I think I know, but I'll allow you to answer. You
Uh,
had mentioned do
Oh, yeah,
51%
50. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
D&D.
Yeah, what I mean by that is out of 100%, right? So if you play, let's say you play 20 games in a year, right? You need 11 of those to be D&D current now, right? So that would be 2024 core rule books, right? And then you have 9 other games where you could. I'm totally okay with you running Shadow Dark, with you running, any of the, like you know there's so many there's literally 1,000 games out there, and in fact it's arguable there are too many tabletop role-playing games out there, and I think that's going to be a problem too, is like, even it's really fascinating. I feel Shadow Dark is very interesting. I feel like Shadow Dark is already getting very messy. Shadow Dark is about to be the splat book slop that I
Mhm.
think it's already there. I think Shadow Dark is cooked. I don't think they're going to be able to continue to build that. And the reason why is they opened up a very open OGL, and like they just did a like a Redwall Shadow Dark, right? So it's furry creatures you're done. You're done. Like, if why on earth does anybody need bad black and white art to play Redwall D&D? Like, there's no good, and at this point, I think Shadow Dark has jumped the shark.
Well, time will tell. I mean,
Yeah.
we're on the tail end of the second successful Kickstarter, and I think, and from what I hear, she's got a third one in the works.
Yeah.
And the other saving grace is, in the indie world, there are a lot of people producing material for Shadow Dark. There is a strong supporting community for it.
No. Too many. That's my entire point. There was a strong.
Yes, there will be a pruning.
Well, and that's my point, is like Shadow Dark, right? You're supposed to have an idea of what it is. And she made a really open OGL. And now, like, here's a perfect example, okay? Dark Space, right, was created. And and Kelsey was like, I don't really like AI. Dark Space did an AI cover right out of the gate when they were building it, but then they retracted it, right? But you could still see, like, if you saw that, like, it was so AI was attached to Shadow Dark right there. And the other thing is, like, you're like, that's a great question. What is the difference between a strong supporting community and just an outrageous amount of slop? And you and I don't need to imagine what that was. We saw it for 3.5. There was so much junk out there that they literally called them splat books, right? And Kelsey went from being a nice little niche, like, OSR title, to being an absolute slop fest. There are too many Shadow Dark books out right now. And I think before, you were like, hey, I play Shadow Dark, people knew what that meant. Oh, you play that one cool, book that everybody knows and everybody has, right? And now you're like, well, what does that mean? Do you play, like, you guys play raccoons that go down in a dungeon? Because that's a Shadow Dark book. Kelsey owns that, right? In that she doesn't literally own it, but that is under her license, right? And so what does Kelsey do, right? So basically, D&D was like, this sucks. We're going to pull back on the OGL. We're going to go to 4E. And when they did 4E, they did not make an OGL for 4E. The people who are doing OGL content for D&D are still using that thing back from 3.5, because they they never redid it until they did the SRD. And what's wild is now Kelsey Dion has the same 3.5 problem that D&D had there. And that's another thing I love too, is like, everybody rolls at D&D and complains about it, but as soon as any of these big guys get big, they realize not a single complaint about Dungeons and Dragons is genuine. It's just, I hate big company, right? And then guess what? Now Kelsey Dion is a big company with a bunch of 3.5 slop, right? And Shadow Dark used to have a shape, it used to have a meaning. That's cooked now.
So Patty has another follow-up question here, which I think follows up on that. Do you think anyone can or should be able to produce and publish D&D materials?
Oh, no, absolutely not. I want the so first of all, they
So you are not an OGL guy,
nope,
no open
I
source,
stand against
nothing.
it. I'm totally against the OGL. Now, first of all, you asked earlier. So first of all, I made my own tabletop role-playing game, which you can get for free. Okay, it's called ABC RPG, and it's like GURPS, like you can run anything with it, right? It's absolutely free, right? Okay. So my issue, why I think we should absolutely abandon the OGL on Dungeons and Dragons, is it is absolutely unnecessary. There is, and there's so many myths in the tabletop role-playing game industry, right? You need a strong supporting creator, third-party creator. You absolutely do not, right? And especially D&D does not. In fact, Kelsey Dion should not have done her OGL, right? Shadow Dark would have a meaning and a purpose today. Now it's just a pile of 3.5 slop, right? It's just splat books out the wazoo. There's no more meaning in the term Shadow Dark, okay? But for D&D, right? Why on earth do we need you? If no one wrote another OGL, if no one wrote another adventure for D&D, it'd be better. And the reason why is, right now, if you want to play a Dungeons and Dragons adventure, there are 40 books in current edition Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. And by the way, I consider fifth edition, 2014, and 2024. That's a bigger, longer discussion, which we don't need to have here. But so there's fifth edition, right?
I mean,
D&D.
you're wrong, but we can have that discussion later.
No, I'm not. We can get into that. So, yeah. All right. So there's the 2024. So you have the 2024, and all those are backward compatible. So you have 40 great books, right? That's more than anybody can run right now, and that doesn't even count D&D canon under the D&D Beyond um, banner, which people don't even know about this segment. But if you go on D&D Beyond, then you will hit you go to all sources, and there's this D&D partnered content, right? Obajima is there, so you can play like a D&D game that is like the Miyazaki movies, the D&D like anime films, right? There is like Dungeons of Darkheim is there. There is Ghostfire Games has material there. There is so much official content, and that official content is so good and so peerless that no one needs any of this jank garage band energy crap that you will find on D&D on DM's Guild, and that you will find published under the OGL. There is just absolutely no need for OGL on any game at this point. Any company, you're better just printing your own stuff and saying, hey, you're excited about my game and you want to make your own adventures, go kick rocks. Your content sucks. Nobody needs to pretend it's good. Nobody needs it here. And if you're passionate about if you're passionate about tabletop role playing games, make your own, right? Like don't copy D&D, go do your own thing. I have absolutely no interest in OGL content. I think all OGL content is absolute gutter trash.
So I'm sensing a little wiggle room in your opinion.
Where? Yeah, no. Yeah. So, I think the days of OGL should end on every tabletop role playing game. Anybody who's excited and wants to do their own thing, go do your own thing. And the biggest thing is the reason why I believe this too is we really found out the truth on the OGL. Man, did people get furious when they pulled the OGL back. And what I thought was interesting is they're like, I have a right to write my stuff in D&D. I'm like, man, D&D is a mansion on that hill. You have a lemonade stand on their lawn. You ain't got no right to anything, right? And so the fact that people were upset and saying, "Oh, and people were like, I make my living." First of all, nobody makes their living on tabletop role playing games if you don't work for Hasbro, like you do not matter. It is not. There is no real TTRPG industry. Okay, there is only D&D. They're the only ones who can actually pay people a living wage. You're like, I don't know about that, Scott. Evil Hat Games, that guy, he makes Fate. They make Dresden. That dude he said this year he still doesn't have health care, like gets it from his spouse, right? That guy's had he's been in the industry for decades, right? TTRPG is absolutely, and the idea that they should even, you know, pretend that there's a real tabletop role playing game industry is ludicrous. It's a hobby. It's a hobby activity. It's not a real industry. D&D is a real industry. Nothing, and they have the business armor to continue to go forward. And that's the other thing is like guys like Stephen Glicker come out and are like, oh, they should do this and they should do that. Stephen Glicker almost went out of business this year. Like he shouldn't have been telling anybody anything, right? All these guys on the OSR and indie side telling D&D how to do it, and they're like, "Hey, if you only did it my way, you'd sell 4 copies of your game instead of 4 million." Like, please, yeah, like.
But you'd have your integrity.
D&D has its integrity. Like it has done tremendous things, and this is my point. This is the thing I love. Not only does D&D have its integrity, but it's still changing lives today. Whereas the Grognardia is not changing anything. They're clutching to their nostalgia and giving themselves the same feel they had with it when they were 14 and pretending there's something noble about and there isn't. There isn't. It's sad, it's pathetic, and we need to get these guys off of these dusty old tomes and onto the new stuff so that there's a chance that some 14 24-year-old dungeon master can learn some of their tricks and some of their usefulness. I don't have much faith in that anymore, just because I feel anyone under the Grognardia banner is really like determined to die alone, just like scrabbling to themselves. But I don't know.
Oh man, you paint a bleak picture, Scott.
I don't like that. I stand like, and that's the other thing is like I'm a huge Warhammer 40K, and like fan, and there, you have your regular Space Marines, right? And then there's the dudes with the banners, right? And they're like, this is our chapter. We're running across the field. We are here, and you're about to be defeated. And I feel like I want to really like carry the banner for D&D and say D&D is the real deal, right? And I really feel that grognards take away from that and bring people to horrible, horrible experiences that are not D&D. D&D is not some crusty old tome. D&D is alive and vibrant. It has representation. It is welcoming to every species. It is cool and alive, and it's cereal and it's shoes and it's books and it's everything. And the Grognardia is nothing.
All right, so Patty asks, are you a raw absolutist? Are you rules as written?
Oh, great question. Absolutely not. So basically, it's a good question, and I'm not trying to insult the person who asked it, but if you, and this is one of the things I love about Dungeons and Dragons is, so you go into Dungeons and Dragons, right, and you begin playing, and you have 2 months of raw, right, and you can have 2 months of raw. You don't have to, right, but I'm okay with you running 2 months rules as written so you understand them. As soon as you're in there, you need to start writing your own content, right? Like you need to, when that's the thing I love about D&D. So we go in there, we can write our own.
How is that different from people publishing under OGL?
Right.
It's just slop at the individual tables versus slop on the gaming shelf.
Well, first of all, I'm not sure many I guess there are some rules changes that are put forward in the OGL. But I think if you understand Dungeons and Dragons, it says the rules are not in charge. You are. That's literally on page 4 of the Dungeon Master Guide of 2014. The rules aren't in charge. You are, right.
Sure.
So I actually think you are not running Dungeons and Dragons if you are running raw, right. You have to change 5%. And you can change up to 95%, but you can't change all of it, right? And if you change all, and you can change all of it, but then you should be on your own tabletop role playing game, right? And then the other reason why I don't want people writing this OGL stuff is it's completely unnecessary. There is nothing in the OGL that I've seen that even compares with like Curse of Strahd or many of Tomb of Annihilation. There's just so many solid, great adventures, and even beyond that, like custom adventures run in Forgotten Realms. That's what I do all the time. I just start it between Waterdeep and Neverwinter, and we go, and it's vibrant, and I can tell the stories I want to tell in Forgotten Realms because I don't need to rebuild every single part. Go.
So, I'm sorry, I had a point and then it flitted out of my brain. No, this is great stuff.
I appreciate it. So I'm curious on your side, what, because I've rolled pretty hard against the against Grognardia. What do you get from it? Like why are you comfortable on the Grognard side?
Well, I would say that it appeals to my sensibilities as a gamer. Over the years, I have definitely gravitated towards rules light systems in general. Whereas, I played a lot more crunchy games in the past, like Champions and such like, and just over time, I found that, God, I have as much, if not more fun in the games where there are no rules and it's kind of willy-nilly silly, and we're just kind of winging it, and we're not constantly stopping and looking up rules and measuring and doing math, and so I found that just really went to my taste, and it allowed me to unlock the storytelling and character creation sort of aspects that are intrinsic to the game, which I think those are the elements that lead to the human improvement engine, because I'm a personally also a big believer in that. It's not therapy, but it's certainly therapeutic, and it is a road to self-improvement if you know how to utilize it properly.
Oh, and actually one was so I want to go back to Rules Light. I love Rules Light.
Mhm.
And this is
Yeah.
another thing that's great is I think the best Rules Light ever written. There is a great Dungeons and Dragons Rules Light. It is Index Card RPG. Index Card RPG is just the purest, best distillation of Dungeons and Dragons I've ever seen. And I ran it forever, like not forever. I
Mhm.
ran it for about 2.5 years. And this is another thing. I will say it. I really appreciate being able to reach your audience, um, and um, and that is so basically on Rules Light. I love Rules Light. It has lost. It has lost the battle. Like in that, and that's another thing is I think we need to realize when the battle's over, right? I love Rules Light so well, but people do not like it, right? So one of the things I thought was incredible. I really covered Daggerheart very closely. Daggerheart was crunchier than Dungeons and Dragons, and I think that Rules Light it's super elegant and super comfortable for good dungeon masters, but the problem is if you gather even 3 players to a table, there's going to be a player who's like, if you don't have system mastery, if I can't get better at your game with good system mastery, then your game sucks and you cannot grow a community on it. That's one thing I think is really interesting is Dungeons and Dragons is good for people who have system mastery. And actually, Dungeons and Dragons can be run for the worst players and the best players, and it does not even ask for good players, which I think is a really important part about D&D is it's built for the worst players and the best players. And I think yeah, and so I love Rules Light, but it has lost and if you build a new game, you better not go super Rules Light. With that said, my system, ABC RPG, if you go to any of my videos, you'll get the link to it. It's totally free, is incredibly rules light. So what I wrote and the freedom for the nice thing is I'm not trying to make money. I just I love tabletop role playing games so much I wanted to create my own. I've actually done two. My first one was too complicated. This one was way pulled back, but I'm convinced rules light has lost. It has no market value. We've tried again. It's like communism. We've tried it 15 times. We've seen every flavor. It doesn't work, right?
40 million dead people later, and it still doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. So and so that's my issue is rules light. It's elegant. It's so cool. It should work. It doesn't. It has lost on every front.
I don't know if you're familiar with him, but Alexander McCrease has a saying. He says, rules light just means you haven't played long enough to answer the questions that naturally come up in your game. My love of it is built in back in the day throughout the 80s. I played, on some parts I played the AD&D, which most of the rules we ignored, right? And I also played BX with other friends and stuff, and I liked the BX experience, the actually specifically Beck Me much more. And that is my favorite official edition throughout the years. So I like that big old chunky rules cyclopedia, warts and all. Not
Oh,
I like it. I like it because I like it, not because it's good.
all right. So one, I'm going to hit you with one of my grognard slapbacks. So here we go.
Go ahead.
So earlier you and this is one of the reasons why I try to stay away from the grognards is they just so much of their stuff is repeats from other grognards. You said, hey, new D&D is superhero D&D. Let's walk through. Let's you and me walk through Beck Me, right? So basic, expert. I think it was companion, right?
Uh huh.
That it was master
Uh huh.
and immortal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
immortal, right? If you look up immortal right now, if everybody Googles it and says, "Oh, D&D 5e is a superhero game," immortal on the cover has a dude flying like Superman. The idea that 5e is superhero D&D and that Beck Me old school Grognardia is not superhero D&D is
Wow.
literally ignorance. There
That
is
is such a false equivalence. I'm literally impressed. That
exactly.
that
It's
that
absurd.
really is.
And it's not just this. Everything that comes out of Grognard's mouth is a lie. It's just ignorance of the new stuff, right? And they can get away with it because they page through it at the FLGS. They don't buy it. and then they hear, like I would say Stephen Glicker is the king of the grognards, and he like, and I just like, it's just not true. Like superhero D&D has been in every edition of D&D. Immortal literally has a flying superhero on the front, and that thing's 40 years old. So like,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
exactly.
It's not new.
And
It's not new, but it is not at all the same as what I was saying about the newer experience. So I reject that one.
I hear you. Fair enough. Yeah, and and to your point, right? That is one of the things that I struggle with too. Is I have, my opinions are so
Because, oh, pardon
different.
me,
Yeah. Go ahead.
even the immortals run out of points eventually and can't cast that spell anymore. That firebolt cantrip, they can't do that forever. I'm
I hear
sorry,
you.
pardon me.
No, 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 totally. That's a completely valid. And I did come at you with the Beckme, the Beckme thing with, and I think that's the interesting part too. Is my take is so different that there has been a cost to doing my channel, and I have rivals and literally enemies, which is frustrating, but it's just where you land, which is it's part of it. One, I'm very impressed with
I
the
don't have enemies anymore.
There you go. I'm very impressed with the robustness of your chat. That's very impressive that people are in
Thank you.
there. Yeah,
They
that's
have
awesome.
showed up for you in a big way. Well, and you're again, I'm mostly swimming in the OSR waters, right? So it's
Yeah,
pretty tame most nights. We go, oh yeah, this is cool. We're talking about
yeah,
OSR
it's
stuff,
different.
and,
Exactly. Yeah,
and
yeah,
shouting at clouds
yeah,
together. It's great, man.
yeah.
We love it.
Well, I really
Now I got
appreciate
you
the
on for
invite.
a
Thank you.
contentious opinion.
Thank you. Yes, yeah. And
Ratings gold. Thank you. I mean.
that's another thing I have learned over the years. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, well, you just have a bunch of hot takes. And that's actually not even remotely true. I don't have a bunch of hot takes. I've learned, I'm a writer, right? Like, so one of the things that I do is I have a ton of things I agree with you on. I have a ton of things that I agree with the community on. I don't waste anybody's time with those opinions, right? Like, because like, why repeat, right? And that's another thing that I wish the Grognard community, well, and I don't think the Grognard, that's one of the reasons why I stand so firmly against Grognardia is they can't say anything new because they're clutching to this moment in time of 1984, and there's nothing new there. The orange is squeezed. There's no more juice there, right? And I'm just shocked at how many Grognards don't understand. You're not going to be able to move the ball. You can't move the needle on dust. It would just, yeah, which is a little surprising.
Back when I was your age,
Exactly. Yes.
we carved our own dice out of stones.
It is
And
interesting.
these are little numbers in the.
It is wild because
I had a 17-sided die because that's the only rock I could find around that size.
exactly.
If I needed an 18 to hit it, I couldn't do it.
One thing that was interesting was I love going to the FLGS. I'm very fortunate. I have a really powerful FLGS. They stock it extremely well. And this week, brand new dice, right? That you actually use crayons on that are official D&D. So they are still selling to the old set.
Smoochy crayons?
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. And it's in a box. It has the D&D, you rub them off. And so they're selling nostalgia to the old guys, but they're also selling the old stuff to new people, which I find really interesting. And
I kind of hope that there's a sort of vintage market that takes over for role-playing games. Like there are, the Basic Expert is one. He loves the early editions, and it's all he does. He's in the OSR pool, but he's a young guy. He started in 5th edition and didn't get introduced to it until later. So Verified, I want that stuff to be there. I want those avenues to be explored. I want it to start where you are, like get everybody into the pool and get them playing D&D, play that stuff. And then when they go, okay, this is cool, but I'm looking for something else or something different. More Game of Thrones, less Game of Thrones, more Narnia, less Lord of the Rings. Let's accommodate that. I liked the 2nd edition settings because there were so darn many of them.
So great point. So I do want to just show this real quick.
Yeah.
brand new. It was it's a week old, but right here, that's that is the that's the guys from from the cartoon,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
I
and
love it.
it's in a brand new week-old book. So, and that is interesting. The other thing,
Well,
though,
I
the
admit
reason,
I do like that. I take that back. That's a part of the art that I have liked is the kids from the cartoon.
yeah, which is now what's interesting, and everybody's like, well, Scott, why are you this way? And like you just said, hey, why? Let's just accommodate everybody. And I'm like, f that. Like, I don't want that, right? And the reason why is I don't want to accommodate everybody. And the reason why is, man, I just really don't like the Grognard set. In that, not
Okay,
only
fair,
it
fair.
not only is it selfish, right? But it's lazy. And the reason why, so why not accommodate everybody? And the reason why is it keeps us small. We are not compete. D&D is not, first of all, D&D does not compete with any OSR and indie. It doesn't even compete with all of the OSR and indie. It's constantly beating the every competitor it has, uh, combined, right? And my issue is I want it to beat board games and I want it to beat video games, right? And so when you say accommodate everybody, you're saying we don't need to grow to defeat other formats, right? And I'm like, and what I'm saying is put the controller down. Don't play another minute of Call of Duty.
Hmm.
I want you, pouring yourself into these identity containers. I want you creating narratives that have never been created. I need your energy on something that matters. And these video games are useless. They're not art, right? Whereas what we create is a new form of art, right? And so
It is
when
its
when
own
we're
art form.
yeah, and so when we say accommodate everyone, what I hear is I surrender. I don't want to grow. And it goes back to that issue of I don't want D&D to die. And I'm
Well, see,
convinced
then
every grognard wants to drag their D&D to the grave with them. They do not want it for the future.
that's not true. That's a mischaracterization, Scott. That
So
the
so what's the
Grognards are trying to maintain the standards that they are used to. Their aesthetics are different than yours.
hmm. Well, I think that's fascinating to hear because I don't like where we are now. There are millions of dollars being invested in Dungeons and Dragons, whereas really almost until Lorraine Williams took over, it was junk. It was just like it was really bad. They were scrabbling at the beginning, and that's okay because they were just doing innovation. But the reality is, to talk about standards, right? Like
Mhm.
it's wild. Like the OSR and the indie talk about standards. The standard is higher than it's ever been. We don't make folios anymore. This is a hardback. This has two different covers. This is on Target shelves. This is on Walmart shelves, right?
Mhm.
What standards is the OSR talking about? You guys never made it anywhere beyond the FLGS. There was nothing. The current D&D has surpassed everything the FLGS holds as noble, right? Like it is beating it in every single metric. Now D&D has crushed old D&D. There's nothing to celebrate there. And the art, the numbers, and 5th edition, right? 2014 and 20, actually you don't even have to include 2024, has completely outsold and outperformed every single edition ever. And that's not me saying it. That's a Grognard King, um, Professor Dungeon Master just said 1.3 sold 1.6 million copies of the PHP. That's higher than any edition ever, right? Beat
Mhm.
the 90s, all of it, right? So the idea that current D&D isn't meeting a metric or a quality standard is absurd in my take.
Okay, I think you've defended that adequately. We're closing in. We got about eight
Yeah,
minutes left on the clock. Are there any topics that we wanted to cover tonight that we didn't get to?
that's fascinating. One thing I'll say is, so this is Forgotten Realms, right? And I
Mhm.
love it. One place that I'm hoping Dungeons and Dragons can go that I'm trying to breach on my own is one. So first of all, I'm all in on AI. I love AI, and I would like. So one, I'm
Mm,
hoping that the prejudice for AI does not continue, right? And one of the reasons why is I think if you look at D&D's actual community, that people have really supported the game for a long time, it's been incredibly progressive, right? Right in 19, February 7th, 1974 was day one of D&D. And Gary was like, well, you're a man, but you can play a woman. Like that, they were going into gender identity issues like in 1974. 20 years before it would be openly discussed in the US, right? And so, one, I'm really hoping that we can, so I'm hoping that we can beat some of this prejudice toward AI. I think AI should be able to write TTRPGs, should be able to do art in TTRPGs. And if you look at AI, every single piece of language to keep it out matches exactly the language that was used to keep down minorities, right? Oh, you can't be artists, you're not human, you can't do things, you can't. So I'm hoping that ends. The other thing that I would like to do is, we've been using D&D for fantasy. I'm hoping that that they will start to officially embrace more intellectual properties as D&D canon, hardbacks. Like, I'd love to have a D&D Ghostbusters game, right? And then, and I think we can start to do this. We don't need other TTRPGs. In fact, I think Daggerheart means that no other RPGs exist, right? Like, all the OSR and indies, just sweep them away. It's junk. It doesn't matter. And the reason why is, literally Hollywood millionaires could not compete with D&D. And so if we just contract the hobby to D&D, there are no other rule sets. I think it would be much healthier for the hobby overall. And then last, I would like,
I gotta poke a hole in that one,
jump
Scott.
in.
I gotta poke a hole in that one, because you say they clearly did have the gumption and ability to compete with D&D, and they fumbled it intentionally.
That's
From what we
true. You're,
discussed
you're
earlier,
absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
right? So,
They did.
no,
Yeah, that's a
the
great point.
outside
Great
industry
counter.
is viable. It is
Yeah.
important. It is
And
important.
you brought up a great point here, and I want to double down on this.
Okay.
Because, and the reason why is revisionism, right? I don't like when people rewrite history, and I'm telling you, the revisionists are coming for Daggerheart, right? And they're going to try to say, "Oh, it was never intended as a D&D killer. It was absolutely intended as a D&D killer. It was announced with two other D&D killers, Tales of the Valiant, and with Draw Steel, and they did it. And you are absolutely right. I want people to realize, because they're like, "Oh, when is a D&D killer going to arrive?" It already came, and the creator smashed it on the ground, right? That's what happened, right? And
Yep.
so you're absolutely right.
Yep.
So yeah, that is
So
a
the
real good
potential
point.
exists for another to arise, and again, I think
Hope springs eternal for you guys. Yeah, go ahead.
hope springs
Yeah.
eternal. That is
Yes,
right.
yes. So that's a very valid point, and I am fascinated by the idea that we really did get the D&D killer. It just, people didn't, and then it was destroyed by its own creators, which is, you can't write this stuff. It's like so exciting and weird and strange, and And then the other thing that what I would really love to see it go to is, I want us to reach a point where, I want to start life modeling. I want somebody to say, to go to their dungeon master and say, "Hey, I'm going to break up with my girlfriend this week, and I want you to run that tonight." Right? Like, and then they like go through it, so that when they have that conversation, and it's not therapy, it's just an exploration of life.
Are you
And that's the other
familiar
thing.
with the term psychodrama?
No, what is that?
Look it up. That's what
Yeah, yeah.
that is. That's exactly
Well,
what you just said. It's
but
that
see,
you're going to break up with your girlfriend. Okay, I'm going to sit down with the trained professional, and we're going to role play that scenario out directly. It's called psychodrama. It actually predates role playing, if I remember correctly.
well, and see, that's my entire point. I will never look that up, and the reason why is, I already have a better model, right? Like, like, I don't need to pay like, why do I need to? That's a regression, right? You need to pay $200 to do that, $200 an hour, and when you ask a question, they're going to answer with a question, right? Whereas your dungeon master is actually going to help you. That's way better than paying $200 to get a question answered with a question, in my take. But yeah. So one, yeah. So that's all. Thanks for giving me that point at the end there. Also, everybody check out ABC RPG. Any video I have, just scroll down in the description. You'll
Yes,
be able to
we
bounce
have your
to it,
link tree,
and it's
and
completely free. And
follow them
I
on
yeah,
X.
yeah. And
One
my yeah.
one
Go ahead.
final parting question. I didn't touch on this. Have you ever solo role played?
That's a great question. I just changed my stance this week. I have a video up this week. I forever said that solo D&D was absolute garbage. I have 180'd my stance, and Deborah Ann Woll, the woman who was on
Yeah.
True
Yeah,
Blood, and
beautiful, beautiful
yeah,
lady.
she's the number one female dungeon master in the world, and she made a really valid, strong structure for solo D&D that I respected. And before I was like, just write your bad novel, don't do it, don't bother anybody with your solo D&D. But I actually have changed my mind on it. And so I have 180 my opinion on and that's another issue too is like I have 12,000 videos. Essentially I've done a 1,000 videos every year. And
No, I
so
just
like
watched your 3 from
yeah.
today.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
oh wow,
And like
hey,
and
funny,
it's not like I think my top is I did like 17 videos in one day at one point. But like but the wild thing is that question, I actually have a full video on it and people can get my entire answer on it. But I've 180'd and I'm totally down and I support anybody who does solo D&D. I have not done it myself, but I'm ready to. And the only reason I haven't done it so far is I need to squeeze it in between my other campaigns, which would be, which I'm very blessed. Yeah.
That's excellent. Excellent. Mr. Garibay, it has been a real pleasure. Thank you for coming
Thank
on the
you.
show.
This has been a wonderful pleasure. I really felt like a guest. I don't feel like a guest everywhere I go. This is very nice. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Good. I really hope you feel welcome, and I
Oh, I
hope you
did.
come
I
back.
felt respected. I was able to say everything that I had said, but you also had some great pushback. And you have a fantastic group of you have a vibrant community who has great questions and great comments. And I'm really excited how filled and and I love a true conversation. And this was a true conversation. I really appreciate me being heard. And I really appreciate others listening and also wanting to get in on the conversation as well. And I think they did. You did a great job of bringing questions in and talking to me, and that's a skill in itself. So I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate that. Thank you
I
very much.
appreciate hearing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this has been your scintillating episode of Jawn with Jack every week, Monday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you here next Monday for our next episode.